The March 25th meeting of the Placerville City Council to order. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Ito, would you call roll, please?
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Here.
Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Okay. Noting a quorum, all here. Do we have announcements and presentations to the public? At this time, I have 3.1, the Gold Bug Park Committee presentation. So I would assume Mr. Yule will introduce them, or no, they'll introduce themselves? Okay.
I can introduce myself.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm Beverly DeSalvo. I'm the president of the Hangtown's Goldbug Park Development Committee. And I want to thank the council for letting me speak a little bit tonight. I know time is of the essence, so I'll just kind of move along quickly. But since Pat Cook retired a little over a year ago, the committee has had to kind of reorganize, and we have an entirely new board. So most of the members are here tonight, and maybe you can just stand up, and I would like you to know that our new board consists of not only myself, but one of our vice presidents, Dean Reed, who's been a volunteer at the park for over 14 years. Who else is here? Our secretary, Charlie Basham, who is our new public relations fellow, and you've probably seen a lot of the things he's been putting out of late. Thank you, Charlie. And Mark Acuna is also here tonight. He's our newest member of the board, and I think most of you probably know him. And we have one other member, Mary Meter, who is the owner of the Placerville Newsstand downtown, and she's our liaison to the downtown merchants. So we've tried to form the board so that we kind of can touch all bases of our community, and I think so far we're doing well with that. I'd kind of like to touch on the fact that even though we spent a lot of time reorganizing in 2013, we did actually get something done, although it isn't as much as we have in view for 2014. Probably the most two significant things were the committee spent $5,000 to buy new audio wands for our self-guided tour, and we updated the tour itself. So that took a little bit of time, but it is in place now. And also in last October, we had our first event, which was a blacksmith open house event, and it was very successful. So that started, I think, putting us on the map. Currently, we're working with an Eagle Scout, Dakota Delano, who is going to be building some benches for us out of wooden logs that a lot of the ones we have are deteriorating. So that's going to be finished actually right first part of April. And most of all, I'd like to highlight that without all of our volunteers, our park doesn't really run well. And so Goldbug Park has been very successful in the last few years, and every year we seem to bring in more income to the city, and it's really because we have a lot of volunteers who are really willing to spend the time out in the park. I know I provided some information for you quite a lot, so I won't go over all of that here, but I want you to know that over $49,000 of the $181 that the city took in last year was because we had volunteers giving guided tours. There is no paid person doing a guided tour. It's all done by volunteers. We also have volunteers in the gift shop and some also paid employees, but the gift shop is starting to bring in a lot more money now too, and our new gift shop manager, she's been here I think 3 years or so. Every year we see an increase in what comes out of the gift shop. So I actually was just handed a statement today that shows that as of the end of March, we have a 20% increase over last year's numbers. Now, some of that was very much due to a special event that we had in February over President's Day weekend, where there were a lot of people in town because the news got out, and we hope that continues. I also want to highlight the fact that because we have so many volunteers working so many hours, that according to a national organization, Points of Light Foundation, they actually attach a dollar amount to the hours worked. And we figure that in 2013, we actually provided about $81,000 worth of volunteer hours. That was about 3,650 hours of volunteer work. Already this year, we're planning several special events. We had the one on President's Day weekend, and on April 4th, which is a Friday, the Mining Summit will be going on here in the county at the fairgrounds. And so we have decided to offer some special tours again of the Priest Mine for that day. So hopefully we'll have the same kind of thing happen that happened in February. Finally, one of the main reasons I wanted to be able to come tonight was that it has been my understanding, although I don't know whether it's been happening really regularly, that Pat Cook always presented the city with a check for proceeds from the gift shop. And so, Steve, you're here tonight, and since you're more part of Parks and Recreation than most anybody else here, maybe you'd like to accept it from me. I have a check here for $21,500 that I'd like to give the city. Thank you very much for attention, and we hope to see you all at Goldbug Park.
Well, Beverly, I want you to know that's a good way to get a standing ovation, or at least an ovation. But it seems to work at some of the service clubs I belong to. Thank you very much for that update. Thank you very much to all the volunteers. If you hang around for a few minutes, when we get to ceremonial matters, there are some resolutions, and one of them in particular, well, two of them actually, pay close attention to volunteerism and how much we depend on that as a city. So, and so do the nonprofits, which will be coming up soon too at that same time. At this point, there was no closed session, so there would be no closed session report. That's correct. At this point, can we adopt the agenda?
Move for adoption. Second.
Okay, seeing no changes, first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moved on. And then ceremonial matters. This is item 6.1. And 6.1 is proclamation declaring April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the city of Placerville. It's the proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring April 2014 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Sexual Assault Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for the City of Placerville. And whereas the El Dorado County Sheriff's Department's annual report shows the number of reported sexual assaults in the county increased by 86% from 2012 to 13, and 80% of those reported sexual assaults were perpetrated on children under the age of 18. And whereas child and youth sexual assault prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience sexual assault before the age of 18. And whereas we must work together to educate our community about sexual violence prevention and healthy relationships for teens and adults, we know that healthy relationships mean developing positive connections in ways that enrich our lives, and about every person being able to make consensual, respectful, and informed choices. There is no room for pressure, violence, or control. And whereas we must support survivors and speak out against harmful attitudes and actions. And whereas with leadership and dedication, we can be successful in preventing sexual violence in the city of Placerville by increasing education, awareness, and community involvement. And whereas whereas the Placerville City Council strongly supports the efforts of national, state, and local partners and of every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts to prevent sexual violence, it's time for all of us to take appropriate action and support one another to create a safer environment for all. Now, therefore, I, Carl Hagan, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Placerville, state of California, join advocates for the Center of Violence-Free Relationships and communities across the country in playing an active role to prevent sexual violence. Along with the United States government, the state of California, I do hereby proclaim April 2014 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And that's stated today by Carl Hagan, the mayor. Matt, would you please come forward? Matt Huckabee is the executive director for the center, and I'd like to give him this proclamation. Let him know about the walk a mile.
I will do that.
It's on.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for supporting the proclamation declaring April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. You heard some statistics, and they are shocking, but they are true. And the one piece that you haven't heard is that we know that the vast majority of sexual assaults go unreported. So we can factor double that number, triple that number, and that may give us a realistic look as to really what the situation is like in our community. And we do good work at the Center for Violence-Free Relationships. These are our clients. We are there at the hospital when we get a phone call when a rape victim is taken in for an exam. We have an advocate that sits there by their side to make sure that their needs are represented and that their voice is heard. We provide counseling services. We provide court accompaniment to those victims. We prepare them to testify. We prepare them and assist them with doing their victim impact statements. And we are very, very busy working with that population. We also get that working with that population is after the fact, that our real passion lies in prevention. And the sad thing for us is that the prevention funding seems to be the least amount of funding that is available. We have a mindset that we would much rather treat a heart attack than we would pay for aspirins or exercise programs. And it's the same thing in this arena as well. But the center feels so strongly and is so dedicated to prevention programs that we are out in our schools across this community, in high schools and middle schools. And last fiscal year, we reached over 1,000 students with 3 different programs that we're doing, all of which are designed to build healthy images of bodies, self-esteem, create empathy, conflict resolution, anger management, and relationship building. Because we know that our kids are going to grow up and have relationships. And the skills that they learn from us early on are the skills that will be transferable so that they can have healthy, positive, and productive relationships as they move on and forward with their lives. So as we're talking about funding being a challenge, so we have coming up an opportunity that each of you, and the bar has been set. I don't know if you know this or not. 2 bars have actually been set. One is that Councilmember Thomas has already been donating to the lucky men in our community who have agreed to don 4-inch red high heels, myself being one of them, and literally walk a mile in her shoes. I've done this now for several years, but we do have our 12th annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes challenge coming up. It will be the last Saturday in April, the 26th. It'll be here at Town Hall. We'll host it here starting at 10 a.m. And I would encourage all of you to come out, if nothing else, for the sheer spectacle and of watching us actually do this. So we have mapped out a good course, and I appreciate the support that Councilmember Thomas has given us, and the opportunity will be forthcoming for the rest of you. And Chief, just a special shout out for you. We are compassionate people. And being that, we thought we would give you a little bit of time to get adjusted to your position before we approached you about this particular community involvement opportunity. So I will let you know that we will let you slide this year. However, next year, we have a pair of these with your name on it. And you can join some fellow Board of Supervisor members. You can join some folks from the CHP that are working with us this year. And you too will be able to keep that standard high that your predecessor set. I don't know if he left you the leopard high heels. However, they were custom made, and we'll be more than happy to get a pair for you as well. So know that we'll be having a conversation in the near future. But let me again thank you for your time and for making the proclamation on our behalf and for the support that you have given to the organization for over 30 years that we've been here in the community doing this type of work. So from my heart to yours and from all of our clients and from my staff and from my board, let me thank you and express my appreciation for the support that you're giving to us.
Yeah.
So thank you
Matt,
very
I just
much.
want to let you know that the president of the Kiwanis Club is already
Yes.
garnering pledges to Bert. I walked with him last year, but not in high heels. I have these bad feet. So, but I made it in tennis shoes, and I will be down here again supporting it, or the cause.
Wonderful.
And we have a couple of members who will be joining that walk. So
That's great. I appreciate that.
George Nielsen all made it several years, Chief. So, just want you to know. Now he's probably about the same height as you, but I think he outweighs you by a little bit. So
Yeah.
anyway, or if he does now, if he didn't then,
So we'll get you stilettos instead of wedges.
yeah,
Since you're a little bit lighter, you can
Yeah.
you can do that.
give him some small 2-inch
There you
heels
go.
to start or
Some
something.
trainers. We'll get you going.
But that'd be great. Thanks,
Alrighty.
Matt, for
Thank
being
you.
here.
I appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it. Item 6.2 is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring April 1st as Community Service Recognition Day in the City of Placerville. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and it's central to how we meet our challenges, and whereas the nation's mayors are increasingly turning to national service volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet city needs. And whereas volunteers address the most pressing challenges facing our cities and nation, from educating students for jobs of the 21st century and supporting veterans and military families to providing health services and helping communities recover from natural disasters. And whereas volunteers in community service represent a unique public-private partnership that invest in the community solutions and leverage resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas the community service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intense commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas volunteers in the City of Placerville, including SHIELD, service clubs, churches, youth sports coaches, city committees, individuals, and other volunteer organizations, including our Goldbug Park volunteers, organizations provide countless hours of serving our community. And whereas the Corporation of National and Community Service shares a priority with the mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, City Service, and the mayors across the country to recognize the impact of service on the Mayor's Day of Recognition for National Service on April 1st, 2014. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Carl Hagan, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim April 1st, 2014 as National Service Recognition Day, and encourage residents to recognize positive impact of national service in our city, and thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities. Again, this is not an organization that's here meeting with us. It's something that I know that many volunteers make up this city. We not only have the Goldbug Park committees here, but we have the Measure H Committee, the Planning Commission, the Historic Advisory Commissions, and we ask a lot of our citizens. And likewise, we hope they enjoy what they do in giving. I've been involved in community service organizations since I was a young man in Boy Scouts, so let's go back quite a few years. I forgot about that. So over a half a century, I'll just say that. And you figured out a Cub Scout starts at about 6, 7, 8, I don't know. But it is one thing that I have passed on as a legacy, And I have daughters that are involved in community service here in the Folsom area, and one in Hawaii. And it's something that they enjoy, that they do, whether it's coaching soccer, youth soccer, like my daughter over in Hawaii with 2 of her kids, not just one team, but 2, and 2 of her 3 kids. And then the other daughter is a teacher at a school in Sacramento, and also make sure that they do a lot of volunteers and stuff that she does with that. So again, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I think that anybody who strives to do stuff in this community, there are plenty of opportunities, whether it's working for the center, working for New Morning Youth and Family Services, and on, CASA. There are a number of organizations in this community that need volunteers. If you don't have the time to serve on their board of directors or serve on a project, attend one of their fundraising events. Help out more, go down and volunteer and help out more. There are tons and tons of things to do in this community. You just have to look in the paper and you'll see what's going on in the community. And anytime you could join, even if it's just to buy a spaghetti dinner. Friends of Seniors last week, was that last week? They had a spaghetti dinner over in Diamond Springs to raise funds. And guess what? They were very proactive. They had a problem. The roof on the Lions Hall in Diamond Springs, all of a sudden somebody noticed one of the walls was bowing out, and they did an inspection. And that building is closed until the Lions get that thing fixed up again and get it stabilized. So they moved on down to the Diamond. The fire department was great enough to let them come down to the community hall in Diamond Springs, and they had a great, hopefully good turnout. I was there pretty early, and we had an opportunity to do that. So there's things that I enjoy and things that I attend, but again, thank you all who volunteer. Thank you, especially, that's one of the reasons I wanted to see Chief, make sure the Shield knows, and I would hope I'll give you this proclamation to post down there. I think that it would be appropriate that they realize how much we do. And there's a number of other projects that we have and go on, Community Pride. I'm going to get in trouble for not naming somebody.
Boys and Girls Club.
Well, there's Boys and Girls Club,
Park and Recs.
Parks and Recs and Park that's done that. So I don't know, did I miss any over here?
This, Mr. Merritt, anytime we have approximately 100 volunteers working within the Community Services Department, that's year-round.
Right. And yeah, our new park, George Duffy Park, has a new playground because of the Kiwanis Club and the city in a partnership. The new playground equipment out at Lions Hall. So there's just tons of stuff that, but again, thanks all the volunteers. If I didn't include your name, it was by omission, not by fault, by intent. Did I get off the hook there, attorney? We don't have too many volunteer attorneys, but John's just about real close to that. Okay, item 6.3. This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring April 2014 as a DMV Donate Life Month in the City of Placerville. Whereas organ tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, and whereas more than 121,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list, and every 90 minutes one person dies while waiting due to the shortage of donated organs, and whereas the need to donate organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities, and whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California, and whereas as many as 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors, and whereas a single individual's donation of a heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, or small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Donations of tissue can save and heal the lives of up to 50 others, and a single blood donation can help 3 people in need. And whereas millions of lives each year are saved and healed by donors of organs, tissues, marrow, and blood, and whereas over 10 million Californians have signed up with the state-authorized Donate Life California Registry to ensure that their wishes to be an organ and tissue donor are honored. And whereas California residents can sign up with Donate Life California Registry by applying for a renewing their driver's license or ID card at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, therefore, I, Carl Hagan, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Placerville, state of California, hereby proclaim April 2014 as a DMV Donate Life California Month in the city of Placerville. And in doing so, we encourage all Californians to check yes when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card, or by signing up at www.donatelifecalifornia.org. Again, another very important thing that we can all do. Very simple. Little orange dot, little purple dot on the back of your driver's license, and guess what? You are one. So it's a very simple thing to do, and it's something that, again, I've seen firsthand the results. So thank you very much for listening to me carry on. And if I can figure out where I'm at on this agenda, I think I'll be okay. That's last week's agenda.
That's not gonna
I
work.
got it right here. I believe we are on public comment, brief non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda and within the subject matter of jurisdiction of the city council. Basically, give you 3 minutes. First, we're going to say, are there any written communications, Mayor?
No, none.
Okay. Then we'll move on to oral. Please stand and come to the microphone and state your name for the record if you don't mind.
Good evening, Mayor Hagan and members of the council, Kathy Lishman, and I'm here tonight just to remind us that we have an ordinance in the city about graffiti. And I gave you some pictures that I've taken recently. The first one is on the mortuary at the corner of B Street and Highway 49. And then there's one on a public utility box. And then 2 that I saw on the trail. And I know there have been some that I've seen recently on the trail that were on city property or Caltrans property, and those have been removed. But it's nice to remind people who own any property that we do have an ordinance to remove the graffiti within 10 days. And I also included a copy, the ordinance was adopted in 1999, and I also included a copy of the letter that would go out to business owners and property owners. And then one of the things that the city had was a certificate that they could go to a paint store and get a gallon of paint for free, and they could take the color and get it matched. And so I thought that was really a nice way to be really positive about wanting the graffiti removed. So I came across the ordinance, and so I wanted to share it with you and remind you that there is graffiti. I think we had a worse problem at one time, and maybe because the problem has kind of quieted down, the active enforcement has maybe been quiet. And I don't know if I like to report graffiti, and I don't know if it would be, the city probably would like me to. So anyway, thank you, and I wanted to share with you an ordinance that's been collecting dust, I think.
This has been around a while because Steve Brown was the chief of police
was
when
gonna
this was
say
the last letter was written. I believe there's other letters in there though, right?
And if you look at the last page, I was one of the council members that adopted it.
Right. We won't say how long ago that was.
Carl,
Thank you for the
Can I
update.
ask Chief Heller just one question? Isn't this something that you've really concentrated on as far as capturing it right away, not allowing it to sit? But now Kathy's shown us these, and I've only seen one of them, but it shows that we still do have a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, we do still have a problem. Part of it is, do you question, should you call in and report graffiti? Absolutely. Along with other crimes. Sometimes there's a tendency to think somebody else will call it in, or
Right.
we are already aware of it, or whatnot. Yeah, it was something, going back to this, that was handled by a community service officer, which obviously we no longer have. So it's in between other calls. If it's identified, it's handled. And matter of fact, out on Upper Broadway at the liquor store, there was a issue with graffiti that we just dealt with this afternoon, and contacted the property owner, and he's going to be removing that. So, and he wasn't aware of where it was at on the side. It was on the left side of the building, which is a problematic area where people, I guess, are congregating and whatnot. So it is something that requires both proactive observations on the officer's part and reporting. And the trail presents some challenges sometimes, as we know, getting up in certain spots and whatnot. And we're working on ways to get more proactivity along the trail. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask, is there any additional comments from the public regarding open communication? Seeing nobody approaching the mic, I will move on to the next item. And we did answer that, so hopefully that does take us as a reminder that there are issues, and there are issues, again, that all of us could be looking at. I'm thinking near my building, there's probably a couple that I should call in, or at least bring attention to the owners. Item 8 is the consent calendar. Are there any items, any council members wishing to remove any item from consent?
Mr. Mayor, I don't wish to pull any item, but I would like to note, City Clerk to note, I will be abstaining from item 8.6. I sit on the local Indian Benefit Gaming Committee, so I will be abstaining from that item.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, at this time, anybody in the public wishing to address anything on any of the items 8.1 through 8.6?
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident. Two items. One is 8.4, which I say, yes, this is good, get the El Dorado Trail moving. 8.4, however, gives me some concern. And I want to know, how does spending this money prevent being out of compliance with the Central Valley Water Quality Board or prevent violation notices? We already approved $5,000 in August for engineering support services to ensure compliance with the low threat permit, including development of a pollution prevention and monitoring and reporting program and staff training for 2013-2014 fiscal year. To my knowledge, we already have this pollution prevention and monitoring reporting program is already in place. And then it says on January 6th, the city was issued a notice of violation by the Water Quality Board. pH on one occasion, chlorine levels on 2 occasions. Now, if procedures from this company were in place, why did we have a violation on January 6th? And then we say these unanticipated services, which to me is not clear. What unanticipated services? What assurance does the city have that $8,000 more to this consultant will actually help? It looks to me like we're rewarding non-performance. We already have Nate Stong, the city engineer. We hired another engineer, and I know that city maintenance staff can monitor chlorine levels. pH is also not hard. In fact, I can do these. I'm sure that city staff can. And why, for what exactly are we paying these consultants?
I think we've got
I think this is I'm almost finished. You give me 3 minutes, right?
I was going to tell you, I think we can answer those, but go ahead.
Okay, I think this is a classic type 3 error. You all had statistics, and you know that a type 1 and type 2 errors are when you say something's true and it's not, or something is not true and it is. But a type 3 error is when you solve the wrong problem. To paraphrase Shakespeare, the fault, dear City Council, is not in our storm water pollution prevention plan or procedures. The fault is in our pipes. Until we get our water and sewer infrastructure up to standards, we will continue to have multiple and not really unpredictable but unforeseen events that will put us in non-compliance and result in violation notices. No matter what plan, paperwork, or training we do, I would suggest we put this $8,000 towards our infrastructure instead.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding guys? Okay, I'm going to close this, and at this point, then I will ask that we pull that item and with further explanation by either Nate and/or Pierre, or both of you. So at this time, then, with items 8.1 through 8.6, with the exception of 8.4 and the abstention by Councilmember Thomas on 8.6. Can I have a motion?
Move
So
for
mo-
adoption. Second.
So moved and seconded. Please call for the question.
Vice Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Councilmember Hagan, I'm
Aye.
sorry, Mayor Hagan,
Aye. Both.
Councilmember Patton,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Okay, thank you. And there are no ordinances scheduled, item 9, 10, nothing. Public hearings, none. 11, discussion. At this time, item 12 has to do with council reports from other agency meetings. On the Transit Authority, Wilkins?
We didn't have a meeting.
No meeting, okay. And myself, Transportation Committee did not meet this time,
I have a report.
okay?
I represented the Transportation Commission at a conference in Monterey. It was a CalCog conference, and I tell you, we got so much information regarding transportation. It was all things transportation regarding funding, the current types of transportation that are out there. And this group is represented from people all the way from upper Northern California down to Southern California. And we just had some wonderful speakers. I wish that I could do a video and share what I learned with everybody. It was really well worth going, so it was
Thank you.
a good 3 days.
Ms. Patton, you want to give us a report on tomorrow's meeting? No, I'm just kidding. For SACOG, I had a meeting last Thursday. It was in Sacramento most of the day. And basically, it was all routine. Some of the stuff I'd reported on as far as the transportation goes. And we had some stuff on transportation, but we also had quite a bit of coverage on drought, getting the region together so they're all talking on the same page. So that with Sacramento says we're in a stage 3 drought, it means the same 30% as Placerville or some of the other cities, because all of us have different acronyms and stuff, and there's 30-some different irrigation districts, water providers, cities, public utility districts in this community, this region. So they're trying to get that on the same page, and they're doing a pretty good job with that. Transportation, the Tiger stuff, I reported out the prior meeting, but the transportation, what's that? Transportation investment generating economic recovery, Tiger 4, 5, 6, we're working on. And I believe, Nate, you've submitted, or we have some projects that we may be able to submit?
No, it doesn't appear that we have a project that's regionally significant and of the threshold that would warrant a Tiger grant. So no, we don't have one.
All right, thank you. And that pretty much was it for SACOG, SEDCORP, Mayor, Vice
No,
Mayor
we haven't
Bowen?
had a meeting.
Okay. So at this point, we pulled item 8.4, I'm sorry, request for future agenda items. Any requests? I'd like a report on the Hangtown, Hangman's Tree, Liar's Bench, 401, the building, the Herrick Building, the process. It's been brought to my attention that they've added a cupola that may or may not have gone through the Historic Commission. So. Bring back a report on that. Thank you. And then also the length of time when they plan to remove the fence. Doesn't appear to be doing anything on the outside. So if the building is stabilized, I don't know if the scaffolding needs to be up there. You know, I know that, talked to Pierre that I guess it's July, their permit time is up for that. So we should be having at least the sidewalks cleared for part of the summer tourist area.
That is correct. Their encroachment permit was for 1 year, which will expire in July of this year.
Okay, thank you. So, just kind of in a couple of weeks, that would be great. Items pulled from the consent calendar. At this point, we pulled item 8.4. So, can we have a quick report on that, Mr. Strom?
I'd be glad to, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Sue brought up some fair questions, and at issue are the normal course of, dealing with that. We have a permit through the regional board for discharge of potable water to natural waterways. So anytime we have a water main break or leak on a service, we're required to take some samples. Steve Yule's group goes out and does the repair, and then also grabs samples to demonstrate to the regional board how we're complying with the dechlorination and pH and things of that nature. This year, one of the problems that we've been having with the regional board is that they save up. We submit quarterly reports, and that's, the $5,000 budget is for a year for assist with submittal of those quarterly reports, maintain the plan, the PPMRP that Sue mentioned. And that would be the normal course of operation. And through the course of this year, we received as mentioned in the report, a notice of violation for going back to February of 2013. So they had been sitting on these reports, and it's frustrating for me. I'd like to get a phone call and say, you're over the limit on this, and you should do something to get back into compliance. But instead, a year later, we received this litany of things that we've done wrong. And so some of this $13,000 is with negotiations and help with discussions with regional board staff. I didn't report in this staff report. Initially, the violations was a 31 list of 31 different things, and it's down to 3 now. So Steve Herrera had helped us negotiate through that process and clarify. And there were some misunderstandings about what the PPMRP should contain and how our original one was crafted. So he helped rewrite the PPMRP. So there are unanticipated needs, and I think they're needed, and it's not rewarding the incompetent, or I don't know how she put it, but I think it's a fair cost.
So in other words, I'll ask a quick question. So in other words, the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board has come back after the fact, almost a year later, and said we've got these things, and said, oh, by the way, your original plan of action didn't include a couple of things that it should have included. Just maybe
it's close. The last part of your sentence, it says our plan includes things that it shouldn't. So we need to pare it down.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not getting this. Would you explain it?
It's tough for us too.
I don't understand how, that they can require something that's we're not required. I don't understand why there was an error, or, and is this something that's going on with all the reporting agencies, or is this unique to us? I don't understand.
It is unique to us. When it was brought to our attention that we needed to file a notice of intent to comply with a permit in 2008, we did so and looked at the general permit is for all types of low threat discharges. So it's not just potable water. It includes maybe dewatering from construction sites or minor industrial. There's a whole category of these low threats. So it included pollutants such as sediment, turbidity, and in our pollution and prevention plan, we said that we would sample for sediment and turbidity. Now, 4 years later, we learned that EID, for example, does not sample or report on sediment. They say our drinking water is crystal clear. There is no sediment in it, therefore we're not sampling for it. So, yes, there was a mistake made early on in our interpretation of the permit and what we needed to show the regional board, but they also did not come back and say, hey, the EID is doing their permit this way. So there wasn't a collaborative relationship there established. And so we're just now finally tuning up to the point where we're at a common understanding of what's expected, and that our revised PPMRP, which Steve Herrera helped craft, it says that we will only sample for chlorine and pH.
So if we're doing everything right now, is the extra funding necessary? In other words, we had some funding before, and things showed that we were doing things wrong, but now you say you're telling us that we've got it all straightened out, so are we gonna require this extra funding since we've got it all figured out?
I would say the lion's share of this 13,000 is for work that's already been completed.
Okay.
And then we have a little bit left to do. We haven't received word back from the regional board on their acceptance of our revised PPMRP, so additional meetings, and then once we're past this hurdle, it'll be a normal course of action of minimal assistance.
So, on January 6th of this year, what happened? Is that a new violation, or is that going back to 2008 and just the litany of the 31 issues with that?
It's a new violation for violations, in the January 6th one mentioned here is for 31 violations going back to February of 2013, and 28 of those have been waived, and those were all of the sediment variety. There's no sediment in our drinking water. So yeah, initially we were looking at a $81,000 fine from the regional board. So
Right,
with
but
Steve
so-
Herrera's help, it's now down to 6,000.
So what I'm asking is, on January 6th, there wasn't a new violation of pollution in the water. There was, it was a violation of the terms of our pollution management plan. Is that accurate?
The January 6th date was the date of the letter, when we received notice of violations that occurred back to
Back in
February of
last year.
2013.
All the way
Correct.
through that time.
From
Between-
February?
From February 2013 coming forward, I'm not sure when the most recent one was, Nate. Do you
I'm
recall?
not sure either, and I do want to just make it clear that the violations from that date forward were for an error in how we were sampling. So when a water main or service breaks or leaks, it immediately comes in contact with the soil, and it has turbidity. And so there's no possible way for our crews to sample that without being in violation. So we were reporting that, and we've been able to explain that circumstance. So both the monitoring and reporting plan have been revised so that we're not sampling for turbidity. We demonstrate clean water, and in addition, we're only sampling for chlorine and pH.
Because when I just want to say, when I first read this, I thought that on January 6th, something happened, some event occurred. Not that this was a violation of our testing, our monitoring plan or our testing plan to prove that our water's good. So I think you've cleared that up. It's very confusing, though, how this was written. I had a hard time with it, Patty.
Thank you.
Well, the thing that I understand most about the State Water Resources Board is they survive on fines. So that's how they're funded. So their job is to go after small cities for, in some cases, technical violations. And it sounds to me like in 2008, when our permit was issued, and and that was that done by Mr. Herrera also?
Yes, he's been helping us from the outset.
So, okay. But, so apparently there were some errors made in that permit according to misunderstandings in the regulations, which, again, they're volumes and volumes and volumes of regulations on clean water. But it sounds like we've got it straightened up down to this point, and I guess, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Morris?
Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, though, we just received a notice also that the state is going to redo these permits. Help me out, Nate, they sent a notice because there are problems with them. So I get the impression it's not just us that there were misunderstandings on.
Yes, they're looking at a drinking water specific permit. So that will remove the ambiguity of what they're trying to regulate and specify, this is the drinking water, and that'll narrow the potential pollutants down and the process. It should be more focused, and I'm optimistic about it.
So
Yeah.
can I ask, you said something about standards, and I keep hearing that somehow we're facing higher standards than some of the other agencies. Is that true? In other words, and it could be rumor, but all this that's gone on, I keep hearing that we're held to higher standards than, say, Sacramento. Is that true? Or is this an overall,
This is a statewide permit, so
it is statewide?
any permittee would be held to the same standard.
Okay.
The differing standard comes from, misinterpretation of, we're required to write our own PPMRP. And so without really being savvy and at the outset, you put yourself at risk of setting yourself up to fail, basically.
Oh,
Okay. So, any additional questions from staff? Okay. I'll bring it back to the council. Well, I'll ask for public comment on this now. Seeing nobody approaching the mic, ask for a close the public hearing. Public comment, I mean, and a motion to accept or reject. Or
so move.
Second.
been moved and seconded. Roll call because it is a change in the.
Vice Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Mayor Hagan,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Patton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Thank you. We are on item 15, staff reports. A report regarding feeding the homeless at the parks or other locations.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At our last council meeting, staff was asked to report on where different groups were feeding the homeless. And you recall at one time we had problems with them being served in city parks and other locations. When we opened Hangtown Haven, we got an agreement that they would serve lunches at Hangtown Haven, and that was happening, working all right. When we closed Hangtown Haven, I don't think that kind of slipped past us, so we didn't look at talking to them about location to serve those lunches. And I have discovered that the locations where they're serving currently are at the day shelter on Green Valley Road, at the Community Resource Center, and at the Hangtown Motel. And I think that was one of the questions specifically, was Hangtown Motel. We're going to do some more work on that and look at that and see what can be done there. Obviously, these are private properties, which are a little bit different than when we were having it done at city parks, which was public property. But we're going to review that and see what can be done there. Just of note, recall that the day shelter, Christ-like Services, will be closing actually a week from yesterday. On the 31st is the last day for that to be open. So.
And I might add, the Community Resource Center is also closing their location on
That's our
Broadway,
closing, right.
going to a mobile unit. So that will impact that too.
That'll eliminate
Yeah.
that.
And Wendy did a great article in the paper this
Great.
morning on that.
That's effective when? CRC is closing effective. They didn't give a date.
I
of the
I never
paper.
did see a date.
And
yet
Renee
on
hasn't
it.
told me either.
Okay.
But they're transitioning to a mobile unit,
I know
rather
that.
than and closing their local location, yeah.
But that space is still available up there. I mean, it's right, it's adjacent to the upper room, right?
What do you mean by available?
Available for what?
It's available for rent or for
Right.
lease or for use. But
So that, well, I'm thinking if we needed a place for
No.
feeding.
No.
No.
We're thinking that we
You want
don't,
to take it completely, okay.
Yeah.
in the Hangtown Motel, I guess if they're bringing prepared meals there, their zoning wouldn't prohibit that, Mr. Rivas?
It would be staff's opinion that that particular category of use would trigger a conditional use permit application in the highway commercial zone. The highway commercial zone is very, very specific in terms of targeting the motoring tourists, Highway 50 traffic and that kind of thing, services for the traveling public. And so it refers to another section of the code that basically identifies a broader list of uses that may be considered compatible in that zone district under a conditional use permit, which is appropriate because then it gives the city the ability to analyze that use and condition it appropriately so that it is compatible. And then it gives the city greater control over the activities on the site.
So, in other words, if they have kitchenettes, they're probably okay if they're within their unit and cooking and preparing a meal, even if they were sitting outside of their unit. But if somebody else was bringing in meals and catering it and they didn't have a large room or activity place, then it probably would not be, couldn't be done without a special use permit.
That's correct. It would be staff's opinion that should have been, that use could be allowed under a conditional use permit, but it's not a by right activity.
Right, okay. Any other questions, or any questions of the city manager on his report?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Thank you. Have we had any kind of conversations with the faith-based community and the nonprofits that are doing the feeding service as to, kind of what their game plan is, and have we collaborated with them, I guess is what I'm asking.
Not at this point. I was just able to obtain this information, but I haven't contacted them further on it. And it brings up an interesting note. Something we need to just be aware of is they're probably going to find some place to feed the homeless.
Right.
And how do we work with them or identify a site that could happen? Otherwise, there's the danger of it going back into our parks and
Right.
other locations where we definitely don't want it. So
All right.
something we need to work on.
And maybe this is a question for Pierre, is the upper room, does it have a conditional use permit? Like, would it be appropriate to have the lunches served there, or is it just, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know that is a dining hall.
If I can give a little background on the upper room was originally owned by the County of El Dorado, and through a grant, it was a community development block grant funding, they developed the upper room to provide for a community kitchen. And so it was illegally established when it was under the ownership of the county. It was then later transferred to, I believe, the Catholic Church, and they're now running and operating the facility. So that particular facility currently is operating legally.
Does it have a conditional use permit or anything like that?
It does not.
A special use permit, no?
And the reason being is when it was first established, it was a El Dorado County project on El Dorado County property. So it was their project. So when it changed ownership, that wouldn't trigger the need for a conditional use permit. So unless that particular use were to change substantially, or be modified in some way, then maybe the city could come in and then request a conditional use permit. But as it now stands, it's a legally operating facility.
And the Hangtown Motel is a permit as a motel, right? Is that correct?
Motels, hotels are a use permitted by right in the highway commercial zone.
What about
And-
apartments?
I think apartments are allowed as a mixed use.
Okay.
I'd have to revisit that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll move on to the next item. Any upcoming items or any additional staff reports? Okay. And upcoming items, tentatively next week it's scheduled TOT tax, Upper Broadway hotels. I guess that's scheduled. There's your question. Oh. Removal of billboards on East Highway 50, Article 3 claim, Thompson Way, water line repair, fire code. We're going to be here late next week. 2 weeks.
What is Article 3?
That's the one right after Article 2. You deserve that one, but
Nate can describe that if you'd like. Tell you what the Article 3 is.
I'll try it. I know the result of it. It provides bicycle and pedestrian funding. It's administered through the El Dorado County Transportation Commission. It's a fund that they established. I think the transit is transit part of that Article 3? Carl, do you know? But it builds maybe $100,000 a year, I want to estimate, and they prescribe that it be used toward local. So the county has access to it, and it has to be bicycle and pedestrian, and it has to be used to leverage other funding. So you demonstrate that you have some federal or state project, and you can ask for that funding as the local match.
Yeah, my understanding is this is a claim that we're making for funding that we've already been approved for, but we need council approval it was based on the Thompson Way sidewalks, I believe, funding that we got from the transportation. So no, it's not a lawsuit or anything. This is a good thing. We're getting money, so.
there's some CMAQ funds for that, so. All right. Any additional questions, comments? Seeing none, next regular meeting will be April 8th at 5 p.m. Closed session will be, for closed session, 6 p.m. for the regular scheduled meeting. Looking forward to seeing all of you then. I just want Wendy to know we broke at 7 o'clock. We did it in an hour, 59 minutes, so if you keep a track, bring your sleeping bag next week, though.